just a quick side note on this before the video starts. I had to use my webcam because the fish room's currently being redone, so I couldn't record down there. So the video quality is terrible, and I do apologize in advance. But thanks for watching.
What's up, Fish Room fanatics? J&N Fish Room here, again today bringing you Species Sunday. We're going to cover guppies today as a basic suggestion, and it's the most commonly owned fish just because it's easy to take care of. They're relatively cheap and they're very beautiful, so most people when they get into the fish keeping hobby, this is one of their first fish. They are live bearers, which means that they do give birth to live fry. They don't lay eggs. They instead carry them inside of their stomachs for a period of 30 days, which is gestation, and then anywhere between 30 to 35, 40 days, they will then give birth to live fry. There are two ways that people recommend you would normally take care of this. Either you can put them in a community tank where there's a lot of coverage for the fry, as well as moss that's been grown out where the fry can actually eat on, or you can separate the mom into a breeder box or a separate container or a separate tank for her to give birth to them. Now, one thing that is known, it may not be as known as most people would think, is that some of the times the guppy will eat their own fry. It doesn't happen often, but if they notice that one of their babies is a little bit weaker than normal, they will scoop down and gobble it up. Nothing to be worried about. It does happen. It is the cycle of life. It is a part of nature. But if it does happen, it's not something that you need to be worried about. The other thing that's really cool about guppies is that they come in a variety of species. And I will include some pictures here so you can see. But there are different varieties, different species, and every day they're creating new ones. They have snake skins, and purple Moscows, they have Dumbo ears, there's half moons, there's, just an endless variety of different types of guppies that you can get. There's cobras, there's grass tails. The list goes on and on. I'm not even covering a majority of them, but they're, as I said, you can see from some of the pictures, there's different varieties, different sizes, different colors. It does include swordtails and things like that. And people are continuously breeding these, and as they breed them, new varieties are being discovered and created every, so often. So stay tuned for that. Just make sure that you always keep track of what's going on. And you never know, you may come across one yourself if you do decide to breed them. Take the best from your tank and put them into a separate tank and start a new colony with them. Always try to progress if you're going to breed with the best of that variety and what specific traits you're looking for to always improve the line. A topic that I am going to get into, which we can bring up again for later discussion, is culling. There's two ways to cull. There's what some people would consider the inhumane way, and then there's also what some would consider the humane way. You can either cull them out and give them to another type of fish that does eat livestock. Cichlids are a prime example of this. If you have cichlids around and you notice that there's a particular guppy that you're not really happy with, you can take it out of the guppy tank and put it into the other tank for it to become a meal. Turtles are also notorious for eating fish as well. It is a part of their diet. If they were in the wild, they'd be eating them just the same. You're not doing anything cruel or vicious by doing this, in my opinion, because it is the cycle of life. That is how they eat in the wild. So that is something that, if need be, I will do from time to time. The humane way that people would suggest is to put them in a separate tank if you want to see them grow up. That way you can separate them out from, and there would be Rogers, one of the cats. You can separate them out from the best of your stock, but you're also giving them a chance to grow and to continue living if you so choose. That is one other option that you can go with. Now with guppies as well, there's a couple of different things to know. And the cat strikes again. You can tell the difference between a male and a female in a couple of different ways. One is by the anal fin. On the females, it's more rounded, whereas the males, it's a little more pointed. The other way to tell is on the males, they're pretty solid color, and on most of the silver females, you can tell right atop their abdomen, there's going to be a line that goes. Plus, with the females, they have what's called a gravid spot on the back of their anal fin. When they get pregnant, there's a little circle that's going to get darker and darker and bigger and bigger. And the closer they are to having their fry, the bigger and darker that will get. So there's just a couple of ways just to sex out whether you have a male or a female. And normally at around a month, 4 weeks to 6 weeks, you can start to see these traits appear. So you can separate them then. The other cool thing to know about guppies is that they are very hardy, which is what makes them a great first fish. They can survive a lot of different parameters. pH ranges from 6 to over 8. They do prefer harder water, but they will do okay in lower pH and softer water. Other than that, I mean, there's not really a whole lot else that you can really get into on detail when it comes to guppies. The gestation period for them is 30 days, so from the time that they conceive till the time they have their fry, as I said, it's about a 30-day process. And for the fry to physically show their colors, it usually happens between 4 weeks to 6 weeks. Sometimes it's a little bit sooner, sometimes it's a little bit later, depending on exactly how well you feed them and what type of foods you're feeding them and making sure your water quality is good. It does allow them to grow a little bit faster. I'm notorious for overfeeding guppies, especially fries, just because it does help them grow faster. In the video, Breeding for Profit, you can see those were only about 3 weeks old. They're a little over 4 weeks old now. They're in that tank. They're starting to show some color. We've seen yellows and blacks appearing. And there's some that are extremely small still, and there's some that are already looking close to being mature enough to breed. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, patience is number one in the fish keeping hobby. You can't expect anything to happen overnight. It just doesn't. But the cycle is 30 days for gestation. Once they carry the fry and they drop the fry, they can become pregnant almost immediately again. So if you're doing a community tank, it's a great idea to have somewhere for them to hide to recover from that, because they can be attacked by the males again, and they can get pregnant right away again. But that does stress the fish out. So what you want to do is give the females a place to hide, to kind of get away from the guys for a little bit so they can recuperate. And then every month afterwards, you'll start seeing fry. They do drop once every, like I said, 30 days, every month. As long as they're well fed, the water parameters are maintained correctly, and everything is good in their eyes. It doesn't matter what your pH is for breeding. It really doesn't. Water temperature, anywhere in the 70s is pretty good. I mean, I've seen some people as low as 68, which isn't something I would do. But I've also seen them as high as in the 80s, the low 80s. I'm usually right around 78, sometimes 76 depending, but normally it's between 76 and 78 degrees for the Breeding for Profit tank. The 60 behind me is at 78 right now as well, and that's where some of them will migrate to eventually. So just keep that in mind. So the parameters aren't that huge of a deal. pH isn't a huge deal. Water temperature is somewhere between the low 70s to the low 80s, and they'll normally breed. Not a huge change in the parameters, so just keep that in mind when you're working on them. The other thing to know is that when you're breeding, or if you decide to breed, or if you're getting guppies in general, unless you're breeding, you want to get males or just females. It's one or the other. But even if you get just females, they may be pregnant already, so you could end up with fry. Anyways, the reason I say this is because if you have males and females together, one male, one female, two males, two females, you're going to have fry. They breed. That's it. I mean, the easiest way to put it is you're better off trying to figure out how to not breed them than to breed them, because breeding them it's just going to happen automatically. But if you are trying to breed, always try to keep a ratio of at least 2 to 3 females to male. So if you have one male, do 2 to 3 females. Otherwise, the males can beat up on the female pretty good, stress them out even more, which isn't good for the female. The other thing to note as well is if the female does start to get stressed out or she doesn't feel comfortable, she can reabsorb her fry. It does happen from time to time. If the parameters aren't just right or she doesn't feel comfortable dropping her fry, she will reabsorb them and they will turn back into nutrients and she will start her cycle over. So it will be another 30-day gestation period. The other key thing to note is that the females can hold sperm inside of them for quite some time. So even if you separate, if the female is with the male at some point and you pull her out and you separate her and she has a batch of fry, that does not mean she's done. She might be, but she might not be. She could lay up to, or I shouldn't say lay, but have up to another 3 to 4 batches, even with no male present. That is something they do as a self-preservation in the wild. They want to make sure that they have the greatest chance possible to increase their numbers and keep their numbers where they are. So they will hold the sperm, and they will have several batches of fry off of that one male. So it's also something to keep in mind as well. If you're not trying to breed, try to get the female separated completely away. Or if you're going to do all males, you don't have to worry about any fry whatsoever. But those are just some of the things that I do personally in the hobby. You've seen that I do have a tank full of guppies, and we're planning on keeping those. They are going to get moved into a larger tank. We've been recently looking at new tanks as well. At some point, I would like to have them in at least a 55-gallon tank, so I don't have to worry so much about the water parameters, because I do water changes myself. Right now, every 2 days, I gravel vacuum everything, or I should say sand vacuum, and do at least a 50% water change on every other day, especially with the fry being in there. Fry always need the cleanest water possible. If you can do it every day, 25 to 50%, that's great. I personally do it every other day at 50%. I haven't had any issues. You've seen the fry, they're still healthy, and I will have an upcoming video on them as well, just as an update for them. So it's another thing to keep in mind. When you have fry and you're breeding guppies, or breeding any fish for that matter, it's a lot of work. Even with guppies, which are pretty self-sustaining, it's still quite a bit of work. And if you're going to breed a fish, you have to make sure you're ready to handle all of it, the responsibilities that come along with it, to make those fry survive. Angelfish, I know we're in a guppy species Sunday, but angelfish and cichlids and all that, they're even more work than guppies. So if you're getting into breeding, I would recommend starting off with a live bear. Do something like guppies. Do something like mollies or platies that are easy to maintain. They're extremely hardy. That way you can adjust and get used to what you need to do to keep that particular batch of fry going. And as you become more experienced, you can move on to other fish. So it's something to keep in mind. No matter what you do, you're going to fail a few times in order to learn. So if you have a batch of fry and they don't make it, don't panic. It does suck. It's not cool when it happens. But you're going to have more experience from it, and you're going to have more chances for fry. I can assure you. Guppies breed like rabbits. You're always going to have that opportunity for it to happen again. If you guys have any questions or comments for me, please let me know in the video. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe, please. And stay tuned for a future upcoming video. We did order some shrimp, and we are going to do a shrimp unboxing on those as well, and putting them into the 20-gallon breeder tank. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And as always, happy fish keeping.